Hi everyone, today we're going to be going over if statements in Excel. If statements are a great function to learn and to master because they can really enhance your project. If statements are a part of the logic functions. A logic function is like a true or false. You have a test, and if it comes back one way, you want Excel to show something. If it comes back another way, you want it to show another. So if it's true, have it return one thing, false, it returns something else. I'm really excited about if statements because I look at them like a building block. There's so many things that you can do with them to really enhance your project overall. Down the road, we'll be going over nested if statements. You can combine them with lookups. You can combine them with, other features, but it's one thing to really have a good understanding of them. So first off, we're going to be going over the function itself for the formula. Now with Excel, we always start off with an equal sign. So we have equals if, because that's the function we're going to be doing, and then open parentheses. Now the first one is going to be the logic test. This is like if one cell is equal to another, or if one number is greater than another number. Those are so equals, greater than, less than signs. Those are the type of things that we'll be using with the if statement. After we have the test, then we're going to have, well, what is it that you want to have if it's true? Do you want it to return yes? Do you want it to say true? Do you want to have a number or a different cell? Or if it's false, what do you want to have happen? So, and then we close it with a close parentheses, and that's our if statement. Let's go ahead and pull up Excel and go through an example. So this is a sample database that I created. In the very top left, we have employee database. You can see the last name, first name, the city, the state, the salary, the certification, if a person has some type of certification. And then what we can do over here under the H column, we're going to put in the salary depending on where the person lives. There's different ways that you can put in the if statement, meaning you can actually type right into the cell itself, or we can come up here at the very top and type it into the address bar, or to the left of the address bar, there's this FX. If you click on it, it'll bring up a box, and this is great if you're not familiar with a different function and you want Excel to help you with it. For example, we have the very first one, the if statement. That's the one that we're working on. If we wanted Excel to help us, we just highlight it like it is, click OK, and then it's going to walk us through step by step and tell us what we need to do. So just like what we went over before, we have the logical test. If it's true, if it's false, it'll walk you through and actually put it in. You can see it already has the equal if and then open and close parentheses already. It's just asking or looking for the other information. These little help things with Excel with the different functions are great. I actually like to type it in right into the cell itself. So I'm going to click on cancel and go ahead and click right on the H3. I'm going to start off with the equals if open parentheses, and let's go over to the C column. I'm going to click right on C3 and saying, you know what, if this cell is equals, and I'm going to put in Seattle. Now, whenever you're putting in a word, you have to put quotation marks around it. So I'm going to do open quotation and then type in Seattle, close parentheses. So if this cell, whatever is in cell 3, if it's equal to the word Seattle, and it is case sensitive, so if you don't have a capital or in the right place, it's not going to be the same. It's saying, is this the same or what we have in that cell? If it is, what do we want to have happen? I'm going to put in a comma, and then I'm going to come over and say, well, if it is Seattle, I want you to come back with whatever is in cell E3. And if it's not, let's say 0, just for illustration. Close parentheses and click on enter. Now you can see it's putting in the 55,000 that we have from E3. And the reason it's doing it is because C3 is Seattle. Now, if we were to go over And let's say we want to drag this and fill in the rest of the cells. So we're going to go to the very bottom right. We're going to hold down the mouse, drag it down, and it's just going to copy it in. Okay, so it's going C3, C4, C5. You see, it's just taking a look at each one of these, and you can look in the address bar, and it's going to see that it's changing. And you can see every place where it's Seattle, it's filling in the salary with the person from Seattle. And if they're not from Seattle, it's putting in a 0. Now, if we were to go down and say, we want to know the total amount. Okay, so I'm going to equals the sum, open parentheses, and I'm going to highlight this, close parentheses. It's going to give us our grand total. How much are the people in Seattle making? One thing you want to be careful with when you're doing a formula, though, is other functions like average. So let's say that we were putting in an average. So we equals average, open parentheses. I'm going to highlight the same cells. And one thing I want to point out is take a look at the number. You see how it says 31,000? Well, that's a lot less than the 55,000, the 65, the 72. We can't really say the average person in Seattle makes this amount, because what it's doing is it's taking all these zeros that we have. So you got to be careful with that. The way to fix that is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go back into the formula, into that if statement. And instead of a 0, I'm going to do 2 quotation marks. This is what you'd use in Excel if you just want to leave the cell blank. So you don't want to put in a 0, you don't want to put in a value, you just want it blank. You use 2 quotation marks, close parentheses, and you see, well, this one is Seattle, so it's bringing back that number. We can go back and autofill, drag it, and you can see those zeros go away. This total is going to be the same, and then the average, well, that one's different because now we're saying what's the average that the person is making in Seattle. So this is a great approach to using Excel and with the project creating or using the if statement to return something that you're looking for. Now, one of the problems is it's not very, well, you can't really change it. Meaning, well, let's say that now instead of Seattle, I want to know about the people in Dallas. Well, I have to go through and change the actual formula because I hard coded it right into the formula itself. A way that we can change this, let me go ahead and delete these cells. And so we have our total is going to be 0, and then we don't have an average because there's nothing in there. But let's say that we want to make it more changeable, that we can change things based off of some input value. Well, in I2, I'm going to write the word Seattle. This way, instead of actually writing it into the formula and using parentheses, I'm just going to say, I'm going to put if, open parentheses, the C3 or this column, if it's equal to whatever I have in this cell over in I2, then come back with the salary. If not, double quotation marks, close parentheses, and enter. So this way, now it's coming up and saying, whatever I have in this cell, let's go ahead and make that part of the equation itself or the function. I'm going to go ahead and drag this down and autofill the cells again. And one thing we got to be careful of is, if you notice, there's nothing in here. The reason for that is because now, whenever we drag and pull it down, it's going to change each cell. So we have C3, C4 over here, C3, C4, C5, but it's also changing I2 because we didn't hard code it. So we need to go back in. The way to hard code something is, let's go into the formula. We don't want to change C3 because we want those to move, but I2, we want that one to be fixed on I2. We don't want that one to change as well when we do the autofill. So we're going to click on that and click on F4, and it's going to put in the dollar signs right around it. So it's going to put in a dollar sign before the column and a dollar sign before the row. And that way it's going to be hard coded in our formula. So when we drag it down, these all change based off of this column, but it's not going to change our fixed I2 input cell. Okay, so you can see now that we have the numbers in here, let's say instead of Seattle, we want Dallas. We can actually type in Dallas and you can see the cells will auto adjust because now it's not looking for Seattle, it's saying whatever in this cell. We can go back and we can do the same thing with, and if we had other cities, we can do the same thing. It's just very nice. One way to, if you wanted to, instead of having the person type in this cell, you can make a drop-down menu. And that's actually in one of the other videos on how to do a drop-down menu. And that way, whenever whatever is selected in the drop-down, it's going to pull up. Okay, so we have that if statement that can combine with other features. And that's why an if statement is so versatile. It's a great formula to know, or a function to know, to really get mastered, because there's so many different things that you can do with it. Again, remember, whenever you're doing an if statement, if you're doing it for like a total or an average, that you use the quotation marks. If you have a word that you want to reference, use quotation marks. You don't have to do it if you're just referencing something in another cell. That's the if statement. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and you have a better understanding of it. We are going to be going over in other videos, nested if statements, lookups, and other functions and features. Please join me in the other videos, and thanks for joining me.